Now we know all the copy and paste options that exist in Excel using the keyboard shortcuts, using the toolbars at the top, using the fill handle, using right click. Well, they all work when you're copying and pasting functions as well, with a slight difference in that the function does get copied and pasted. It doesn't copy and paste the result, it copies and pastes the actual formula but in its new relative position. Let's use the working file copying functions. Now on the shopping sheet, there is a simple shopping list in which we have a number of items, the quantity we wish to purchase and the unit price each. We need to then enter the formula here to work out the total for each line. So if we do that for bread, it equals the quantity cell, so B2, multiplied by the price cell, which is C2, and then return. So straightforward multiplication. Now when you look at the result, we see 446. When we look at the formula, we see B2 times C2. So we copy the cell with the formula in. So I don't need to go in and highlight. I effectively need to be on the cell. So that's the big white cross. Copy by whatever your preferred method is. And we know we get the marching ants when we do that in Excel. Select the next cell you wish to paste on and then paste. Notice the result is not the same. It's now 1629, which is 3 times 543. If I look at the formula, we'll see that it's now looking at cells B3 and C3. The reason for this is that Excel formulas are treated as relative. So when you copy and paste them from one location to another, they retain the same relative addresses. So it doesn't retain B2 times C2. It effectively retains, if we look back at the formula, remember that I am multiplying a cell 2 to the left of me by 1 to the left of me. So when we paste it into here, it does exactly the same thing. 2 to the left of me by 1 to the left of me. If we were to do exactly the same thing, copy that formula and paste it over here, so nowhere near our little table, paste, the result is 0, but when we look at the actual formula, it's still doing exactly the same thing. 2 to the left of me multiplied by 1 to the left of me. So the relative addressing is what is important with your Excel functions. Once you're happy with a relative addressing, you'll be quite happy copying and pasting formulas. So let's delete that one there. So having got this to copy and paste into here, I could copy again. And in fact, I could paste into all of those. If you remember, we did that with a piece of text. We took a single text value and pasted it into many cells, and it pasted exactly the same text value. If we do this with a formula, we copy a single formula, we paste it into multiple cells, it will paste that formula in its relative address into all of those cells. If I now press return, all of those cells receive that formula, but they all display a different value because their formula has now been pasted in relatively. If we look at each cell, you can see 9.8 is 4 multiplied by 245, but the formula is now looking at these two cells. So it's again 2 to the left times 1 to the left each time. And every time you copy and paste a formula, it will always do it relatively. Now we can do pretty much the same thing in our other sheets. Let's look at the sales sheet. This is displaying our sales from Monday to Sunday for shop 1 to shop 8. Now we could add this column up by saying equals sum, open brackets, all of those cells, return, and then we could copy that formula and paste it into each of these cells. Now we saw previously that we can copy using the fill handle. Well, that also applies to formulas. So we take the little fill handle and drag to the right until we get to shop 8, and each formula is then effectively copied into the next cell with its relative address. So if I just pick on shop 4 summary, we can see that it's copying the cells above it. So the same as we've done before, it's the relative address that is copied, not the result. We can do the same with the rows. Equals sum, open brackets, all of those values there. Close the brackets, return, 56,000. We can take the little fill handle and drag to the bottom. Now with the fill handle, you can do a double click and it will copy the contents as far down as Excel feels it is appropriate to go. And that's usually as far down as there are values on the left. It doesn't make any difference doing that or doing copy or just dragging the handle. The result is the same. The relative address of the formula is copied. So this one here is looking at those cells there. Our bottom corner here, the grand total, can either be a copy of that one, in which case it will copy those cells, or a copy of that one, in which case it will copy those cells. So let's take that one down and it then looks at these cells here. So it's actually copying the shop totals to give us a grand total of 812,800. Now the last sheet in this workbook, the non-consecutive one, shows a file we were playing with similarly earlier on, where we have Bob, Alice and Mary's fruit consumption over the 5 days of a week. And we already have a formula in place here. So this is adding up non-consecutive cells, and it's adding up B2, B7 and B12 and giving us a total for fruit. Now if we copy that formula and actually paste it into all of those cells there, so that's all 3 food items, fruit, veg and meat, for all 5 days of the week, and then return to paste, it pastes in the relative address. So if I were to just look at that 15 in the Wednesday and bring the formula up, we can see that it's picking up the correct values. It's veggies on Wednesday, veg on Wednesday, veg on Wednesday. So even in this case where we're using non-consecutive cells, because we're effectively after the same relative location, it works. And we can pick out one formula, paste it in this case, to 15 cells, and the result is the right result. It's picking up the right cells to produce the right sum. So that's copying formulas in Excel. We can do exactly the same as we've done for all other copy and pastes when you're using straight text and numeric values. The thing to bear in mind when you do it with a formula is it doesn't copy the result of the formula, it copies the relative address of that formula. So you need to be careful where you're pasting it. Now logically the bottom of column and the end of rows works, and in this case our little mini table here works because the relative address of everything is in the same place.